think there's not many opportunities, or there weren't many opportunities that I could see at the time.
Okay.
One of the things, and I've done a dissertation on the Swaziland Constitution, and Jan Sitole was actually my guide when I was doing my dissertation, because it had to do with labor law rights and so on. So he assisted me. Our house in Ngwane Park was one of the last homes with a mud house. Very soon I'll be announcing an allocation of 500,000 rands to assist in so far as scholarships are concerned. After Days Way is partly because of the fact that the environment and the system in Swaziland is anti-indigenous business. It's ironical because in 2000 must have been the elections of 2003, because I think I was 24 years at the time. I contested elections. Was the slaughter of the people in June 29, 2021. The reason why those young people were killed with impunity, it is because they are poor for the most part. So if you allow space for people to engage, to talk, and to be heard, most importantly, you then by doing that, you are making it impossible for the society to be anarchist, because the government as it involved as I think I am slangen. Counter-revolution always stems from amongst those that you think you are working with. That's the nature of a counter-revolution. Inzala, the counter-revolution. It is my responsibility to hear everybody. Of course, but you can only hear if you've been approached. I can confidently say, if that's what he said, he's really speaking nonsense. We need to take stock, all of us, reflect on the lessons that we have learned since 2021, knowing and appreciating, of course, the issues that we are dealing with and the problems that we are trying to solve are old. And so, but it might well be that both the reformists and the revolutionaries, they actually, all of them want a Swaziland that is ruled through the multi-party system. But it's just how do we get there and when do we get there? There are those that have got appetite in terms of waiting this out for another 30 years, where even the Minister of Minerals and Mineral Resources doesn't know how much gold has been taken out, doesn't know how much tax was due in respect of that gold. We need to be deliberate in ensuring that we live in a world order that respects agreements. In the same way that we are calling for Mswati now to respect the agreement that he made with President Ramaphosa, that there will be a dialogue in Swaziland, not a joke. MSF and my activities, often our originator is Secretariat MSF.
Okay.
Our originator nema affiliates.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mngomezulu, for coming into eBridge podcast. I'm sure you've been following or trying to establish a repository for the children of 2090. What were the issues of 2023 and how did Swazis of that day respond to that? So we appreciate coming into this platform and making time. So we really welcome you.
Yes, thank you very much to the Bridge and the team. I'm also glad to get this opportunity to have this conversation.
Yeah, that's very nice. Sorry, I hear a lot of you in the papers, in the press, Mngomezulu. People know you as Mngomezulu, a South African. Are you really a Swazi? Let's start there.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Kodwa ke cha ngitalelwe eSwatini. Ngidalwa ngahamba ngayokhulela kaMamkhulu eSangweni eSpeak. Leqaleni nje umuntu asakhula very early on. And then when I was 6 ngabuya ke sesengiyohlala eNgwane Park. Bese kwakhiwe eNgwane Park mabamse kakhile kunelikhaya. And then I went and I stayed there ngaqala grade 1 in Ngwane Park Primary School 1986. Nakubekwa nje inkosi lekhona amakhosi eDivi, I remember very well 1986. khona nakule basigabisa khona bekudinga ibilishe kwangathi kuyimali in those years. 1986 1992 nga standard 5 labanye batawukhumbula kuleyo minyaka. I think I was the only student who actually merit kuleyo nyaka.
For real?
Yeah.
Stuck fact check.
Yeah. You can fact check.
Okay.
I'm sure the Ministry of Education
still has those records. Okay.
They have those records. So ngase ngiyaphuma ke eNgwane Park primary school head teacher wethu nje kwakungithishela Gininza. Abanye bebambida ngaJibas uSanza Kushona, may his soul rest in peace. And then ngahamba ngaya eSt Paul's. St Paul's ngifika nga1993 ka form 1 ngiyafunza until 1997 second ke form 5 lapho ke sengi head boy.
I'm told.
Head boy vele ngidlula ngako lokho ema merits konke nje bo JC hayi solo ngihamba ngalelo nyawo. Head teacher wethu lapho bekungu Mrs Maphalala.
Wait, before Mrs Nyanzeni.
Bekunguye Mrs Nyanzeni phela Maphalala ngithi kuthiwa Maphalala Nyanzeni.
So no, but the normal one is
Mrs Nyanzeni. Yes. So
okay.
That was my head teacher. Kusukela ka form 1 cishe ngaze ngayocetha nabantu abakhe ke sasikhula nabo nje eNgwane Park ngoba cishe ekhaya eNgwane Park lisekhona namanje lelikhaya cishe kuhlaleleni. Makwami lomntala wakabhembe enyakeni.
So vele Swazi fit and proper and everything.
Babu wami nje usebenzele inkundla noma ngidawusho njalo usebenzele uhulumeni wakangwane eliphoyisa. Yes. Eliphoyisa cishe for 35 years. Wapenshela 2001.
Oh.
Yeah.
I want to bring the issue sukubita igama lababo wakho. Please correct me. I'm just going to throw what I heard. Guti, your father has links though to South Africa or mkhulu wakhe nesenza beni bobukhosi benu ngalana KwaZulu Natal and all of that. Nekuthi ngazuthi futhi nebhlobo ne angati kanjani nenkosikazi Mngomezulu and all of that. What how true are those things?
Yes. Kuliqiniso lokushoko utawukhumbula phela ukuthi ingwavuma iqala eKZN Manyiseni lapha kwamabuya khona iyofika esihlangwini nenza ukuthiwa sesihlangwini iphindze yehle ifake elibuli lonke
kaNgwane.
Yes, kaNgwane manje so lokusengwavuma lapho kuthiwa kusengwavuma nje ngoba lo mfula kuthiwa ingwavuma uqala ngalawa kwaHlathi and then wehle undlule uSoko. So labantu awukhumbula ke emlandweni kwakuvele kukhona nakadzeni ukuthi inzalo yasengwavuma itaba ingcenye yaseSwatini. Wakulwisa ke lebeka ndunankulu wakwaZulu ngaleso sikhathi kaJabuthelezi iqala laze lajutshwa inkantolo lenkulu yasePitoli in 1982. Yagcine ke iSwaziland ke ingathi ingwavuma ingakangeni under Swaziland. Yes. But ke nangatulu kwaloko kaNgwane uhulumeni wakangwane usenako ukuthi ingwavuma it's part of Swaziland. Ingako kunenakho labakubita ngathi the border adjustment committee. Ngisahlala eSwatini kakhulu early 2000s ngiyakhumbula sibebaba neallocation budget. I think it was 30 million at the time every year for the adjustment committee yayifakwa imali lapha. So uma ke ukhuluma ngaloko ke eMaswati atawukwadi ithi Swatini ngumngomedulu enzabe nelibonjeni ngumngomezulu. So baba wami kudala ebukhosini ngevele bangomezulu one of the princes umkhulu Mkhono lokumkhulu wami lophuma ke endlini yalibelo. Abanye batawukhumbula ukuthi mawusho nanatelo takamngomezulu ufake libelo ufake Mbekisa. Mbekisa ke ngikhokho wami aphinze abe ngikhokho walambekisa njengoba wena unathi kunalambekisa nje Swatini. So ke kunaleyo mlando loyo ke ingakho uyothola ukuthi ngiactive wavuma ngoba vele kusekhaya ngiphinze ngibe active kanjalo nakangwane ngoba phela delwe khona ngikhulele khona kulo Maswati ngisichance
But le ngiyabangwa le ngwavuma. How are the things there ngoba ngiyeva ukuthi hey lapha.
Yes,
Umatima.
yeah, no, nakhona kunetinto takhona.
Khosi Mnjalo nje.
Yeah, Khosi Mnjalo. Into le yaqala kudzala nakushona inkosi zombizwe. Kuze kunesikole eSwatini esibizwa ngokuthi so naseNgwavuma sikhona isikole esibizwa ngalelo gama. That was in 1969. And then kwangena ke lebekuthiwa uyinkosi ngaleso sikhathi bekuthiwa ngintunja. Baphika ke kwaMngomezulu kufaka phakathi umkhulu wami bathi hayi intunja akasiyo kwaMngomezulu. Intunja wakwaSihlongonyane.
Yo.
Bekasebenza kalamathathe eBig Band angikhenani Sihlongonyane angasiwa kwaMngomezulu. So that is now in 1973. Inkantolo ke imkhiphe ke intunja inkasengisho ke inkantolo yaseMaritzburg. Ngoba bekusephethe emabhunu ngaleso sikhathi. Kwaba netimpi ke kwaMngomezulu. Kwachitheka imiti labanye babaleka abaye eSwatini.
Akethi lapho babakho.
Baba wami ke awunaye phela uyathinzeka ngoba beka inkosana le yamkhulu. So ke bekangeke ahlale naye angathinzeki ngaleso sikhathi. So ke sengisho ukuthi ke kwaMngomezulu nakhona nje kunetinto takhona. Sesiyakhula ke nana nathi sesibanga ngolo singaka konke letinto lezo sithola tikhona.
Kuyalandzeka futhi.
Kudele singakwenda ngalokho. So ke umuntu longazama ukuthi athi hayi Mngomezulu therefore not eswazi ngabe bakhuluma nje indlela abangayadi.
So kahle hle
ngiyati kodwa sinosingudla diyazama ukusho ukuthi kuhlukile. So ke but iqiniso lisa akungehluki njengoba ngisho nje babami besebenza liphoyisa lapho eSwatini.
But akusithi naloko ngoba ukhwele khona wena noma ngabe bakho baqhamuke ngale wena bodaba liswati lokuqalwa. Noma ngabe
irrelevant nje ngicabanga ukuthi kuyi-convenience yalesikhathi ngoba phela umuntu sosuke sowaba sepolitiki.
That's true. But uyakhula ke university ufunza kuphi eSwatini noma uvele udangala Sikhwahlande?
Yeah, so 1997 ngaphasa kahle ka form 5 ngaqualify ukuthi ngingangena euniversity yaKaNgwane. Wangibhadalela uhulumende scholarship ke bese sengakabi likhulu kakhulu ngaleso sikhathi. So ke nga-enrolla for i-BA law. Ngaleso sikhathi wawusafunza i-BA law. LLB. So I majored in political science and sociology. That's what we would do for the first 4 years. And then you get your BA law degree. Then you add another 2 years. So when I get LLB. So I did that kusukela 1998 until 2002. And then from 2002, 3 and 4, ngase ke sengendi LLB. Ngase nangicetha ke ngase sengiyabuya nematoho ngalapha eNtosifana.
Yeah, but no ufika ngalana ufika vele utawufuna kusebenta noma utawufuna kutisebenta ngoba all of a sudden we don't know Mngomezulu the lawyer, we now know Mngomezulu the businessman. How does it interface?
Yes, you know, I've always taken the view that I'm a businessman before anything else.
Okay.
Yes, I just happen to have studied law, but I'm an entrepreneur. Ngikhuliswe ngimake makwambeka isingiphelele nabadala bethu bebangalathathana. So she was a hustler. Bangani bami lengikhule nabo eNgwane Park, they would know this. So ke angimake nje ukuthi thengisele emarket khona lapha kaManzini yaphinza buya tothengisana ngala. Wasikhulisa nje sikanjalo sonke sasingu-6. Wasikhulisa 5 kubakhe and then sekunamzala wethu lesakhula naye. So ngangivele nginawo ukuthi umuntu uyakhona nje asebende aphile angabi na boss. So I've never liked the idea yokuba na boss.
Awuzanga sewusebenza nje.
Ngake ngaba naye ngoba phela ngisinawutawende ama-articles, tawende ama-articles ufuna uqale lapho vele. So ke I did my articles 2005, 2006, was actually 2007, then I was admitted as an attorney.
Ngala
27 October 2007. I was admitted as an attorney. And then I worked for Routledge Modise. It was called at the time Leo Law Firm Leo. So we don't see Hogan Lovers. It's one of the top 5 in the country, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
So you were mentored by the best?
I was the labor law associate there.
Oh.
Yes. And then it was actually 2009, September. I then established my own law firm, CHSM Incorporated. Lisekhona ke namanje iseSandton.
Oh, okay. So, do you, I mean, I wouldn't want to dwell much there, but I'm interested. What's your big case that you still think about today and say, this one was one hell of a case? We won or whatever that happened.
Yeah. Well, I've done a lot of cases because with the articles I'm in a sport.
Okay.
First with the Legal Aid Board, which is Legal Aid South Africa. It's a government entity under the Department of Justice. Then I was approached by another firm. Then I joined Sandton. It was Swanepoel Partners. I 2007. So when you say na sport, then especially under Legal Aid Board, I would do lots of criminal work, variety of cases, rape, burglary, murder, sort of things. So I've done those cases. When I came in Johannesburg, I majored, or should I say, I specialized in labor.
Okay.
Yes. That is when now, Sandton, I was a labor law associate at the time. Then once I established the law firm, then I evolved into a commercial lawyer fully. So I was dealing mainly with contract law. I was dealing mainly with the gambling regulation. I was one of the time, the very few black attorneys who knew anything about gambling regulation.
Oh.
Yeah, because gambling regulation itself is a new concept in South Africa because during apartheid, gambling was not allowed within the boundaries of South Africa.
Yeah.
Which is why Sun City was established in Bophuthatswana, which is where it is.
And in fact, what people don't remember is that it also operated from Swaziland with the same problems.
Absolutely. And Sun International was then set up in Swaziland. There was a casino there.
Yeah.
And which is why the casino there, I say, because once South Africa gained independence, or should I say freedom, then gambling was allowed within the borders of South Africa. So all the 9 provinces had what we called gambling ports. And so one of those gambling ports, which is the Eastern Cape Gambling Port, was my big clients. I did a bit of work for the Gauteng Gambling Port as well. So I've dealt with very, very significant cases involving gambling regulation. We will be taken to court a lot. Grahamstown High Court. I've also contributed actually in amending some of the regulations. Actually.
But why? I mean, having grown in the country, why didn't you think of going back and doing law in the country, in Swaziland, that is?
No.
Or you already established?
No, because there's fundamental problems with the constitution in Swaziland. It's a variety of reasons, but maybe let me start with this one. I think there's not many opportunities, or there weren't many opportunities that I could see at the time.
Okay.
And growth. And by growth, I don't mean financial growth, I mean professional growth. The industry in Swaziland is relatively small. So that's the first reason. So one wanted to measure himself against the best, and to try and learn from the best, so to speak. That's the first reason. But the second reason is that if you study the Swaziland Constitution, one of the things, and I've done a dissertation on the Swaziland Constitution, and Jan Sitole was actually my guide when I was doing my dissertation, because it had to do with labor law rights and so on. So he assisted me at the time. He was still the Secretary General of SFTU.
Yeah.
But the problem is that once a constitution places any individual within the 4 corners of the jurisdiction within which that constitution
must operate.
The next week must see constitution that is worth its salt. So I had a fundamental problem with the constitution, because it places Ingwenyama, it places the Queen Mother literally above the law.
So are you suggesting that already you had some political consciousness of sorts, even back then?
No, I did.
You're not a Jimmy come to town lately in the whole political
in fact,
space.
as far as I can remember, when I was in Standard 5, I have been in some leadership of some sorts. So I've had to contest positions at some I've had to deal with contesting ideas.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not necessarily new in a contested space. Let me put it like that. So okay, so I then came to South Africa, with the understanding that one is going to learn and empower themselves,
and grow,
and ultimately Maswati would benefit from that.
But
I employ a lot of Swazis, by the way, even now.
So you've always understood that your country gave you something. So you do a lot of charity work as well.
Yes.
And I'm hearing for the first time that you also employ Swazi. So there's a more. I want to dig a little bit on this philanthropic side of you. Is it something that you've always had, or it evolved over time and all of that?
Yeah. Ekhaya we're many. I mean, I've got, sitting here now, I've got 21 brothers. I've got 18 sisters. So those who are alive, some of them would have passed, and I'm talking kids born of my father, literally. So my father was a polygamist, and so in a sense there was scarcity of resources. So I grew up very poor, very, very poor actually. Our house in Ngwane Park was one of the last homes with a mud house. Yeah. So now I've always understood that the biggest fight of my life that I would ever have to fight is the fight against poverty.
Yeah.
And I'm the last born of my mom, so I had already seen the others. Would see how things panning out. So I had a big challenge on my hands, and it was to defeat poverty. And I did that actually within 3 years after leaving university. I was very, very comfortable. But I understood things are tough. There's less disposable income. The middle class is not growing as it should. The economic situation is challenging. So I really understood that Swaziland is, I don't want to use the word in a mess, but I will just say it's economically challenged. And that most of it has to do with the governance system. My challenges are corner. So nganginako ukuthi vele if umuntu has the means kumele ukuthi asite lapha angasita khona eSwatini.
So how were you helping? Were you helping? Were you paying for children's school fees? Were you giving just take me through, how were you giving back to Swazis, especially for someone I'm sure but someone wants something from the piece of the cake.
It's always an ongoing thing, but one of the most important things now it's not even charity actually. That is why I get very upset every time Taiwan, rice and so on, because that doesn't help us, because it creates dependence.
Okay.
So where I thought I could make the most impact really was to employ people.
Yeah.
Which is why that I employed even now in Swaziland. I've developed properties in Swaziland, constantly developing. Literally for the past 7 or 8 years, I'm always developing something. And that gives dignity to people, but also it's money that they've earned. It gives them meaning. So I've chosen to approach it that way. Very soon I'll be announcing an allocation of 500,000 rands to assist in so far as scholarships are concerned. And so on. So imali
yeah. Okay, I wanted to go back to the issue of business. So when do you get into a first business? And it's not an easy space to start there. And I know it's difficult to talk the area of when do you start. Already starting your own law firm is itself a business, but you have ventured out and had many other businesses as well. how did you get there, and how did you balance the very demanding work of being an attorney and running an office and in business?
Yes. Well, even before I actually opened the law firm. Already I was in business. The first business I involved in South Africa in 2007. I already had shares in a mining company together with a family from Swaziland in Bank. So they needed my skills. I had the skills. I had to give them the skills in exchange for something.
Yeah.
So I kept those shares. Over time, they grew in value. And it is for that reason that it was easy for me to resign from that law firm I was in and set up my own law firm. It's on the back of that, actually, that very first business initiative or investment in coal mining.
Beneficiary of BE.
Yes, you could say that. You could say that, yes, because BE was big in those days. I mean, you're talking 2006, 7, yeah. So it was still under President Tabombe. So yeah, it was big. And everything else then followed thereafter. It was from there on, it was one business after another. The law firm in 2009. Next it was property, then it was retail, hardware. Maybe just to countenance this point, I've particularly never been a person of the limelight.
Yeah,
it's probably an incident of June 2021 that sort of pushed me into the limelight. Not of my own choosing, of course, but people were killed.
Yeah.
There was a state of impunity.
Yeah, we'll get there in a bit. Because I was talking to a colleague of yours, or rather, she was talking with her own counterparts, the issue of how difficult it is to establish business in Swaziland. And if I'm listening to your story, I could be inspired and say, I can be like Mngomezulu and become this person who's impacting my society through business. Yeah. But I think maybe you need to be able to give the context, which is also important, or would say the environment, how enabling is it for business? I can imagine if you were in Swaziland trying and attempting all that you have done, it would not have been possible. Or am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Well, but today's way is partly because of the fact that the environment and the system in Swaziland is anti-indigenous business. So yes, an enabling environment is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the policies that are at play, for instance, we benefited a great deal from the PE policy, but also the government. I don't know now, but at the time that we were growing these businesses, pumped in a lot of money to support black businesses. So it's a function of the policies, but also the rule of law environment. That is also very important because when we fight over a contractual issue, you and I,
you must have an independent court.
You must have an independent arbiter, somebody that will apply their independent mind, and you must have the comfort that whatever decision that they arrive at is a decision that is arrived at judiciously without taking into account any other consideration other than the facts and the law.
Yeah. So talking about Baqede, how do you get to know him and eventually become his lawyer? I see him. I see a lot with his brother as well. How did the relationship come about?
Yes, Baqede. No, Baqede ngubhuti womnganami. So yeah.
So you know the brother before Baqede?
We grew up together.
You lie.
Yeah, we grew up together. In fact, I was even one of the groomsmen when he got married many years ago. You're talking about Peggy, right? Yeah. I was one of the groomsmen from when we were young. I mean, we've been friends for almost 25 years.
Do you have a business interest together where maybe you are shares?
No.
He's his own business.
He's in mining. And no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm no longer in mining. So yeah.
So wait. So how then do you get to? But by extension, you also get to know Baqede before the arrest.
Long. I know him when he was young. He's younger than me, so I know him when he was really young. He must have been at Form 1 or somewhere there, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So how has it been for you, Guti? You are dealing with these people that you know them as you do from young. The relationship is not just an attorney-client; it's also deeply personal and emotional. How has it been for you, sitting on the other side, to know what he's been going through, to know what his family has been going through?
It is difficult, of course, because I know the family. I think Baqede in particular is a well-meaning, responsible human being, a family man, a father, a husband, and a businessman. So if you listen to all his utterances, both inside and outside of parliament, as they relate to the politics of Swaziland, it is very clear that he's not speaking for himself. It is not about what he stands to benefit, but he has been to parliament for 2 terms and he has worked with the system. He then understood what the weaknesses of the system were. I mean, there's a point where he even said to Maswati, they must know that they don't have a parliament. And which is true, because that thing is not a parliament in the true sense of the word. If you think about what a parliament ought to do, okay? And I know that it is ironical because in 2000 must have been the elections of 2003, because I think I was 24 years at the time. I contested elections.
Oh yeah, I was about to say that.
South.
And Alpheus makes this point when he mocks you in an interview. He says, "Yeah, you're against the system because what they were." So it's nice to hear you say something.
Alpheus knows me when I was very young.
So you know each other.
He was a preacher. He would visit my church. Remember, at St. Paul's, I was the chairperson of the SSCF. It was called SSCF at the time.
Yeah, the Christian. I went to school as well. I went to St. Paul's, so I kind of understand.
So you would know, yeah. So I was chairperson of that. So I literally spent a lot of time in church growing up. So he would come and visit our church. So he knew me when I was young. I cannot talk about the other things between him and I because. Yeah, we do have a bit of some history.
Oh, okay. But you are admitting that irrespective of the fact that you contested elections, but that they contested elections, the whole parliamentary system is defective.
Yes, of course. I mean, like I say, I was young. I think I was doing my LLB first year at the time. So of course, when you are that age, you finding your feet. Not just professionally, but also in society. And you want to know how systems work. I had a bit of a following at the time. I galvanized the society in Ngwane Park. I won the primary elections. I contested the secondary elections. I was contesting against people like Prince Mfanasbi. So, okay. So, and I was the youngest contestant, I think, in the whole country at the time.
I can imagine if you are at the university and you went to school that young, you must have been in your 20s.
I was 24. Yeah.
Oh,
when I contested elections, yes. Yeah, so, I was 24. But of course, you look at the Swaziland Constitution, you get a bit more exposure, Pella, over time.
Yeah, of course.
I've gotten more exposed.
Yeah.
I now happen to live in a democratic country, and it is a democratic country. It has got its own challenges,
but democratic nonetheless.
It's a democratic space nonetheless. For instance, we can do this interview without worrying if there's a police person waiting for us. There's freedom of speech. You can criticize whatsoever it is that you want to criticize. You can follow through on matters that concern you. You can take them to court, knowing that you will not be called to the side to pay this or that, or not knowing what their ruling would be. But on the strength of your case, then you can either win or lose.
Yeah.
Next year I will have been practicing law for 20 years. I have never been in a situation where I come before a magistrate or a judge or even a CCMA commissioner, and I either already know the outcome or I have to canvass any of the judicial officers on the side. So it's a beauty to work in a system like that, and that's precisely what we also want for Swaziland.
Yeah, I want to go back to this point and I think it's important. You represent Baqet, and in the political space, you are not known. We don't know Mngomezulu.
Yes.
Some of us, when we first said, "Who is this one now?" Why? Because the assumption is that no, you are opportunistic. I'm playing the devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
You see that things are almost on the verge of change. You're using Baqet, you're using your fame, you're using the money to position yourself. Because should anything happen, and therefore you will become something out of that. Speak to that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure about the fame because, like I explained earlier on, I don't really like the limelight, especially the limelight that has come with being involved in politics in Swaziland. You are in the media space, you will know very well some of the things that we have to deal with simply because we happen to be in the forefront. So maybe let's take care of that first.
Yeah.
So long before I got involved in the case, I had the means to propagate my name in the media space, if that's what it was about. In my companies, I've got a team of marketing people, media, social media specialists. There's a whole lot of resources at my disposal, which I could have used to, if I was obsessing about. In fact, I was not even on Facebook at the time. I re-engaged on Facebook simply because that's where matters of the revolution in Swaziland were being discussed. It was solely for that purpose. So I was actually approached by Baqet long before there was the revolution. In fact, Tabani Ngomonye was still alive. He shares with me some of the challenges that they're experiencing in Parliament. At the time, I think the former Prime Minister had just passed on, Mandulo, and then Themba was acting. So we just shared. I will not obviously go into the details. Some of these things have found their way to the courts, of course. So they are already in the public domain. But the understanding is that he's receiving my counsel. There's no revolution at the time. No one knows me at the time. So long before he was arrested. So you must understand that I was already providing legal support. And when he then gets arrested, then obviously I had a duty through his instructions, of course, to then assemble the legal team for him, which is what I did. The intention really was never that I will even go to court. Many people don't know this. So it was not so much that the team will be assembled, then I will always be in Swaziland. When I then engaged the advocate who was from South Africa, he took the view that I should be present most of the time, and the legal team, as it was configured at the time, there was TR at the time, Comrade TR. There was a sentiment that says, no, when we get to court, and be like, nah, man, you guys go and sit in front. It's fine. I will chill at the back. I'll watch you from the back. I'll be taking notes. They say, no, we want you here.
Okay.
Be with us. Be with us. That's fine. So then, obviously, once you are there, you must work. So you must follow through what's going on. You must inform the strategy that the case takes as it evolves in front of you. So now there's media interests, there's public interest. People are outside, they want to know.
But also the matter has taken a political life of its own.
Yes. Yeah. So people want to know about what's happening inside. So we come out, I rush to my car, then I go, hey, you Swazi lawyers, address these people. So the feeling was that, no, man, there might be some reprisals if those that are in Swaziland are actually doing the addressing. And the public relations part. It must be that I must be responsible for the public relations as it relates to the case. And that's how then I came to assume the role that I assumed as far as the case is concerned. So those are things that happened So hence then, of course, once I was given that responsibility, I had to do it right. It's either I do it right or I don't do it at all.
But why do this? You have a business to lose. You've got a reputation as a business person. You're throwing yourself into the filth of Swazi politics that many Swazis say, the thing, never do it, a waste of time and everything. And you throw in all of your lot there. Why did the case and how it was continuing make you make that decision? Or you knew I'm comfortable, even if anything could happen in Swaziland, I can still live with my children.
I'm not sure even if anything happens. I think the game changer for me, as it relates to Swazi politics, was the slaughter of the people in June 29, 2021. I think that's when, as far as I'm concerned, the regime crossed the line that should have never been crossed. Remember, I told you I grew up very poor, Eswatini. So I looked at those images, and I was comfortably on holiday, by the way, at the time, when the accident or when the massacre happened. I could see those young people, and I saw myself. Because the reason why those young people were killed with impunity, it is because they are poor for the most part. Abasibo mntwana bani. So na bebafile kufa kwabo nekuphila kwabo means nothing. That is why some of them were buried like dogs. So I think for me that was the turning point. Because utakhumbula phela seMaswati they gave me life, yabona ntelwe khona ngiphila ngenxa yawo, and ngafunza ngemthelo weMaswati, okay, and so I owe my very existence to Swazis. So there is no way that
could have looked away.
One would have just turned a blind eye to such a thing. Now, to add salt into injury, when the king then addresses the nation, it was 16 July 2021, after the massacre, the king has got no word at all kunqisitela imindeni yalabantu labafile nalabalimele nalabadinqubela. Okay, so that's the king, father of the nation. Of course, when the massacre happens, you wait a bit, you say, okay, the king is going to speak, the king is going to speak. He says nothing about messages of condolences to people that are failed. Now that says, letimpilo talabantu labo ti cheap ngaleyo ndlela. And then uyaqhubeka wabita ngani ngetibhema nsangu. Okay, that's the king. Tibhema nsangu. Nasebheke lokho, we know very well how everything started. It was around the issue of petitions. It was around the issue that people wanted to elect the prime minister at the time. It was a very small demand, But of course, there had already been a build-up. Others, they always refer to Kufa kwa Thabani Nkomonye and other things. Just that environment of impunity, government, kuharaswa kwebantu during lockdowns, and all of those things. So the environment was ripe for some kind of a spark. So sekwendekile konke lokho, then uhulumende uyawade emaphutha akhe, because the biggest mistake lana happens ngesikhathi naku iparliament itawuhlangana 4 days before the massacre. So it's 4 days before June 29. I think yahlangana on the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. There was an understanding in parliament, both houses of parliament, there's a caucus, bayavumelana ukuthi kutawuhanjwa kuyo receive petitions. Already about 41 petitions had been delivered. And then the remainder of the petitions, onke MPs akahamba etinguleni ayo receive the MPs. Ay nangembala ke vele tawendeka lokho. Seyivumelene iparliament. Entsambama of that day, Themba Masuku, the DPM, acting prime minister at the time, we are coming out, no, that's not going to happen. I'm banning the delivery of petitions at Inkundla. Now, if Themba Masuku had not banned the delivery of petitions,
therefore closing
no
any
life would have
opportunity.
been lost. Yes. So you're closing any opportunity for people to ventilate because
They've just come back from COVID, by the
they've
way,
just exactly
and they've had so much frustration.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of pent up emotions, anger, frustration, and so on. Labanye bafelwe, labanye they've become impoverished as a consequence of COVID.
In fact, as a strategy, you would have said, just let them blow off steam, receive those petitions, they'll go back home.
Yes, as a Tingundla strategist. Yes, absolutely. As the regime strategist, of course, that's what you would have said, to say, you know what, they will come here singing, dancing, toy-toying, just let it be, as long as they are not vandalizing.
Ish.
Okay? And then you receive the petitions, then you process these issues.
Yeah.
And then you do what can be done, you don't do what cannot be done. So the reason why so many Swazis died, it is that decision to ban the delivery of petitions, because that then set the fuse where people were now angry. Then there was anarchy everywhere. We all know what happened thereafter. So whoever said to Themba Masuku, ban the delivery of petitions, he is responsible for the death of a Maswati. That's my point of departure.
So if a person is looking and watching the MDM, the New Year, what can they expect? And it's good now, you now have a constituency, you're complaining of the same thing. What is the MSF plan for the whole year? Beyond activity things, but also to bring back dignity and credibility and unity of purpose within the Swazi struggle as a whole.
Yeah. Okay, mhlambe angiqale ngiclarify kule part ukhuluma ngama activities. MSF ama activities often our originator secretariat MSF.
Okay.
Our originator ngama affiliates. And then the MSF will endorse or support that activity in whatever form.
And amplify them where it can.
And amplify it where it can. So, and I'm happy that you are bringing it, because the MSF I sugume quality trati. The MSF platform is not for that.
Mm-hmm.
It is more for purposes of coordinating. They are protesting, or they have got programs that are advancing the cause for democratic reform in Swaziland. So thanks for raising that. The activities, yes, we support and we encourage our affiliates to have as many activities as possible. For us is to make sure that they serve the purpose of advancing the democratic revolution in our country. And then coming back to your question, I think the most important thing that we need to do as a matter of agency, in fact, is that we are going to be sitting down and taking stock. There's a lot that has happened, not least of which is the divide around the elections. The so-called Sibaya, which has just taken place, and the posture that the government is taking around the recent Sibaya. There's been a new prime minister that has been elected. There are new MPs and all of that. So we need to take stock of everything. But also there's this counter-revolutionary wave that we are finding ourselves in. So we need to holistically look at that. Not just as the Secretariat or the Leadership Council of the MSF, but we need to do that with our affiliates who will be sending their representatives. So that's the first thing that is high up on our agenda insofar as mapping the way forward is concerned. The second thing that is front and center of our intention, or should I say, of the things that we believe needs to be done, is civic education. Our view is that we need to be very aggressive insofar as informing Maswati, but also educating and winning their hearts and minds. This is politics. At the end of the day, politics is about that. It's about winning hearts and minds. It's about getting as many as you can to your point of view, your way of thinking, and your outlook. And so we are going to be very, very robust in terms of our civic education program. We've got people that are already working on that as we speak now, so that early on in the next year, we begin to use a multiplicity of media platforms to deliver our message. So that's going to be very important. Whilst all of that is happening, we will also be doing a bit more insofar as the international lobbying work is concerned. There's a lot of unfinished business, especially with SADC, insofar as the Swaziland issue is concerned. There's some terms of reference that have not been adopted by all protagonists. There's a dialogue that still has to happen. In our view, there's a commitment that was made, not to us, but to heads of states at SADC, that there will be a commitment. So there has to be a follow-through, as there will be, a dialogue. So there has to be a follow-through on that commitment. And we will be doing everything in our power to make sure that Swaziland remains on the SADC Troika agenda until such time that the dialogue which is envisaged must happen does in fact happen. You asked me earlier on, it is not entirely up to the regime whether the dialogue happens. It is up to us. It is about our resolve. It is about our stated intention. It's about our tenacity. And it's about bringing more international partners or state actors into our way of viewing things and into our way of doing things insofar as getting the democratic outcomes that we seek in Swaziland is concerned. We also need to look closely into our affiliates. So we would obviously encourage them that they must have proper leadership, all of them. And by proper, we're talking about leadership that is elected. And where we can support, we are very keen to support. We recently did that with PPA, for instance. When I came in, PPA had no leadership. We assisted PPA to convene their meeting, where then a new leadership was elected, and they made various other agreements. So we encourage the same insofar as all the other affiliates are concerned, because it is only when there's a leadership that is legitimate, that enjoys the support of the rank and file, that you can be in a position to fight and fight confidently, knowing that you've got the backing of your own members. So those things are going to be extremely important to us, but also we'll be engaging our members sectorally to say, as workers or as labor, what is it that you can do, not only to civically educate our people, but also to create programs that continue to demonstrate that the democracy that we seek, we mean it first of all, and we are going to achieve it in our lifetime. As students, what can you do? And so on and so forth. So that's going to be some of the outcomes, of course, that will come through when we do have our affiliates meeting earlier on in January. But most important thing, we must win the hearts and minds of Emerson.
I can't ignore this one, given what you want to do. It's a lot of money needed. Are you looking at getting resources for that type of work? And where are you looking? Because otherwise, it's easy for me to want to dig into your family purse. So are you looking at resource-wise?
Well, the family has got nothing to do with this, thankfully. But the issue that you are raising is around fundraising, I think. So fundraising is an everyday thing in organizations such as ours, because we rely on a donor. So we are looking at a variety of ways to raise funds. That's why we've got a Treasurer General who's tasked with precisely that responsibility. And we have got no doubt in our minds that when we make our case to those that we are making our case to, they will give us money.
But how
there's a lot of money in the world.
But if I'm sitting at home with all these allegations of donor funding that you are chowing, can I be guaranteed that if you get that money to do the way it's supposed to do,
actually, the funny thing is that it's only when I became MSF chairperson that I had to try and learn how to raise funds, including from donors, because I've really never had to do that in my entire life, or at least in my entire professional life. So I wouldn't know. So you can rest assured that. No. You can rest assured there's nothing like that. So yeah. So if you are talking about me personally, so I've given you my answer. But us as a collective, we've got a duty to make sure that every cent that gets donated is used for what it is donated for. Thankfully, some of the people who donate, they say what they are donating for. I heard somebody mentioning Shakantu, and I don't even know who Shakantu is. The first time I heard about the word Shakantu was some years back. I was renting a helicopter, and he happened to have rented where I was renting. So I don't know him. I don't know Neil. I don't know all of those people. So I'm sure they'll be very happy to have me in their corner. But those are people that are serving a system that is responsible for the death of our people. It's a system that is responsible for the impoverishment of Maswati.
So you can't take money from them, basically.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Unless the sole purpose why they are giving us the money is to advance all of the things that I'm talking about. Yeah. Surely it can't be money to do anything that is counter-revolutionary in nature. Yeah. So I would not be interested, yes.
Come to you as Alpheus Nxumalo and I say, no, Mr. Mngomezulu, you're mistaken. What killed people is the anarchy that you instigated. And I'm not using you, Mngomezulu, I'm using progressive. You banned schools. You banned places. What were we supposed to do? We had to act strongly and act decisively.
Well, then we need to talk about when banning of structures happened. Okay? So that's what we need to talk about. And we need to distinguish criminality and stated intentions, a ban to communicate and to liaise and to be heard by those that they had voted into parliament. So if you allow space for people to engage, to talk, and to be heard, most importantly, you then by doing that, you are making it impossible for the society to be anarchist or to be room for when so if bantu bangakhona ukukhuluma again, by the way, it's the same problem that the regime is going to face even now, not because I say so, but because it's human nature. I studied sociology. But I'm also a social scientist. Yeah. So I know that when you muzzle people, you can only do it for up to a certain extent.
But also, it also defeats the argument. Right around the same time, there was the similar chaos in South Africa. People were not killed. There was similar chaos in Hong Kong and many other places where people naturally ban, even after they ban property, but they're never killed as they were killed in Swaziland. So I guess it also defeats the city. You instigated it. I guess the disproportionate response was what many people are shocked about.
No. It was the response was absolutely disproportionate. There was no need to kill so many people, but also the brutality of it. You know, people being forced to walk on fire and all of those things. We know those things. But again, why bother? I had to bother for the simple reason that those people who died the way that they died, if you were to be a move or rewind and say what happened in 2021, if it had happened, say, in 1997 or 1998, at the time when I was in Swaziland, I would have been one of the people that were protesting. And chances are, maybe I would have been one of the people that would have been killed. So I immediately identified not just with the pain of these people, but also with their frustration. So why do I get involved? So that one plays a role in creating a Swaziland where such a thing that happened in 2021 will never happen again. And how do you do that? You ensure that you have a democratic constitution, You ensure that there are systems that are put in place and institutions that allow people not only to express themselves, but to question authority. You ensure that there's a culture of the rule of law, which is inculcated, so that when Singavani, the courts can be independent arbiters, they can rule impartially without taking sides. You ensure that there are independent judges, even judges that do not take a mandate. I'm just not sure that Swaziland is that sort of thing right now.
Can I also use you as a public representative of this other group of people? Would you blame me if I say, I'm not speaking to Mr. Mngomezulu, the lawyer, the president, I'm using you as a representative of a class of people in our society.
Yes. No, I get you.
Would you blame me if I say we're here because of people like you? You successful, you were in South Africa, you abandoned your country, you abandoned looking for change in Swaziland, you went here, came to South Africa in a freedom fought for by others, thrived here. Lot of Swazis are here in South Africa doing a lot of goodwill, enjoying democracy, but they go home, they don't want the same thing for Swazis. And I'm using you as an example, can't we not blame the middle class as well?
Yeah. No, I would understand if anyone was to raise a criticism like that. Most definitely, I definitely would understand that. But remember, in my case, I said to you, I grew up poor, so the biggest battle I had to fight in my life was to overcome poverty, and that really preoccupied me for the most part, and one didn't quite follow closely, what sort of means through which one could contribute to the struggle in Swaziland. Yeah.
Even people like who are businesses, even after Sokofeban, they're not. I would have thought Swazis would have thrown all their lot to ensure that there's a struggle or there is an attempt to get justice for those people. But things are back to normal. People are getting everything. So it's not interesting that even though when they let them vote Kazao, you are just 1 in a million to have taken this decision that you've taken. Others have not bothered. Everything's fine. But I would have thought the Swazi middle class, both in Swaziland, in South Africa, and the world, will be doing what you are doing. I would like to have your comment around that. The indifference of Swazis who are prosperous or who have seen better to try and do something.
Yeah. Yes, you are using the word strange. Yes, I would admit that it surprises me as well. The mere fact that there is no groundswell of people with means, people who are advantaged, who could make a difference. But then again, I think it's human nature, There's a reason why the struggle for liberation in Swaziland, in this case I mean South Africa, took as long as it took. I think people tend to be indifferent by nature. People always prefer the devil that they know than the angel that might actually turn out to be a devil. So I think that does happen. It's the same reason why in North Korea now, over 8 million North Koreans, they live under the system that they live in. And that is how all dictatorships across the world have thrived. They will dominate the information space. And after 1 or 2 generations, it becomes incredibly difficult, to reverse the damage, I would call it, that gets caused. So Swaziland gets independent in 1968. At the time, there were less than 200 or 300, less than 300,000 Swazis, way fewer. And I know this because in the 1940s, the population of Swaziland was only 100,000. So some of these things are a function of time. So if you have got a smaller number like that, it's easy to control. And I think you can also build consensus. But as the population, you can manufacture consensus. Yeah. But as the population grows, as people get more educated, and now with the advent of social media, Yes, and the fact that the internet is now relatively cheap, people get exposed to a lot of information.
So now you get into this progressive camp now. It's a head and tail. How do you find your space, your way? It's different ideologies, different strategies, different personalities, different egos. So how do you maneuver your space now in this progressive camp and find your footing? How has it been? What has been your experience?
Yes, all revolutions geared towards a democratic outcome, they go through all of these things that the mass democratic movement in Swaziland is going through. All of them. So it is very difficult to deal with the human mind, because wonke umuntu ngekwakhe nje umuntu naye aphelele unemiqondo yakhe njengoba usho unema experiences langafani, imfundiso letingafani. So you need to calibrate thinking, perspective, indlela yokubuka into, and that takes some time. But also, I think we are also unfortunate because this happens at a time when we are no longer a reading society in general. Abantu abasajabuleli kufunza kangako. We are a society that everything is short and sweet. TikTok generation, Twitter generation, 140 characters type of a generation where everything must be straight to the point. We're a visual generation, Instagram generation. So the propensity to then squabble, because for the most part, it's a society lengana depth. Any depth we told through experiences and through reading for the most part. So the society that we have, not just in Swaziland, even in South Africa, is no longer the sort of society that would immerse themselves in trying to understand things at a much, much deeper level. So for that reason, and I'm not generalizing, but I'm just saying, when you look at the debates, when you try to follow, that is why it will be quick to unleash an insult, okay? When you should be debating, for instance. So there is that sort of environment that we're finding ourselves in. But you are dealing with human issues here. At some point or the other, there will have to be an alignment of the thinking, of the perspectives, and that which we want.
Okay, you're taking me almost seamlessly to the current controversies. And I'd like to put it in a nuanced way. You come in as a business person, you come in someone who comes from the Baqede MP type of nang. There would have been an easy perception. You are moneyed, you are affluent, and all of that. And now you are associated with a certain group, special group within the democratic movement, that you are then likely to be seen as elites. How would you deal with the perception wise now? It may not be real, but you just came at the top, and you associated that level. Therefore, you became elites. Hence, today it's easy to call all sorts of derogatory names, Bosbanbani, and all sorts of names that we have seen flying around on social media. I just want you to address that, especially as it relates to that. There's a word I saw, high table or bobhabuli, and all of that.
Okay. I'm not sure about the part about being elites. Again, maybe that is also caused by a short-sightedness. And I don't know what makes a person to be an elite. Is it money? What makes you to be an elite?
Speaking of the trend, influence.
Yeah. I think people must be tested on the content of their characters, and that which they say they stand for. For instance, in my case, like you asked me earlier on, it would have been easy for me not to bother. The easiest thing I would have done for my life and for my sanity is just not to bother. Okay, they died, so what? You wait for those that want a donation, give them, and then you keep quiet. So that would have been the easiest thing to do. I would not have to deal with insults. I would not be having to deal with the smear that is currently generated and geared towards me. I wouldn't know what elites I'm associating with, because ema elites ngowati kwami eSwatini bantu betinkundla. Even if they are business people, they are those business people that benefit from the system of cronyism and corruption. Lekhona kangwane. Those are the people that want to associate and be in the good books, so to speak. It would have been easy for me, by the way, given the history and my family history, yes, that I've just given you. It would have been easy for me, by the way, to operate in those circles. It would have been very easy. If it's not easy, I could have bought my way into those circles. Okay, but I still chose not to do that. So that has to say to you, then somebody is driven by something else, you know. So I wouldn't know with Bobandlama elites, but you referred to my friends earlier on. I've explained we grew up together. Sasingana Luto nabobheki mnganami. Labanye ke bathi khona la ekusebenteni ezusahamba. Lokuthi bangema elites nokuthi bayini, I'm just not sure about that. Yeah.
So I want to just make one last point on this one. I am seated outside and observing, and I'm saying, what egoistic maniacs are these that they would be prepared to wendela phansi lo msebenzi lo muhle bewendile just because of their egos? And here I'm referring to political party A, political party B, civil society A, personality A, C, and D, that you are just not working together precisely because of egos, perception-wise, that is. Why are we having you fighting over petty things like whether to go to parliament or not, whether to contest party position A or not? Ganzi, you could have just swallowed your egos and worked together for a common good. And I'm speaking as a general Swaz and saying you've let down them by all of these fights we're seeing on Facebook, on social media, that you could not just sit together. And I can mention names if you have to. Why can't Mngomezulu sit down with Mr. Smelane, Mr. Makanya, and the rest, Mr. Hlachowago, and all of those people, swallow their egos and say we are stronger together and be able to work something? I just want your comments around that.
No, I'll bring the question maybe related more to my circumstances. So I entered the fray, the political space, because I'm Baqede and Mthandeni's lawyer in 2021 in August. And that's still who I am even now. I understood that the case is political, and therefore it must be dealt with both in and outside court. It's about hearts and minds of Maswati. So I'm very vigorous in that, very vigorous, consistently. So until then I get banned, according to the government, for having said things that I didn't say. Because the government, it's as it involved, as I was saying, I am slangen. True. Ngati buta sithi aya yini, that's ati. Ngase ngizola bangeke babodalana abahlabela ingoma, which I did. So kunemehluko lo kunokuthi ningayi.
Exactly. But even if you had said so,
if it
would have been wrong.
Absolutely. Assuming it was in a democratic country, of course, you would say such a thing. But where am I going with this? I'm trying to say to you, I had no official position in the mass democratic movement other than the fact that I was a lawyer until 29 July 2023, which was already well into the election season. People already campaigning, I think, at that time, if I'm not mistaken. Then I become MSF chairperson. And I'm told I was elected. I was not there. I just connected virtually. I'm told I was elected unopposed. So the term that one finds themselves in, it's not a new term. It's a term that Thulani Maseko was supposed to serve. Unfortunately, we all know what happened on the 21st of January. Thulani then gets assassinated as the MSF chairperson. Then the MSF is left rudderless at the time. There is no chairperson. There's a state of fear, and so on and so forth. In the wisdom of those who were at the General Assembly, they then took the view that they would ask me if I would be interested in assisting with the work that was being undertaken by the MSF at the time. So I was in no position, therefore, at least up until July 2029, to have, say, you and you work together. This is what needs to happen, or to even give instructions.
You had no constituency.
I had no constituency, yes, that's the word. So I was in no position to do that. But by the time that one is elected chairperson, positions are already entrenched on either side of the spectrum. Those who are going to be participating in the elections and those that are not going to be participating in the elections. So I think one entered the fray very late into the election cycle, where everybody already knew what they thought about the elections. I had my own views. I think the elections in Swaziland are useless. It's an absolute waste of time. We will be proven right again and again. There is no need for anybody, in my view, to have participated in those sort of things. All the lessons that we need to learn about the Swazi Parliament, its functionality or non-functionality, its weaknesses, there are no strengths to talk of. We've already learned all of those lessons. We've got Bakreteni Mtandeni in jail. What more do we need to learn? What more do we need to be taught about the fact that that thing is not a parliament, even if a parliament, because those men are innocent. Those were politicians. Who else was supposed to talk about the reception of, or should I say, the receiving of petitions other than them? So you arrest politicians for expressing a political opinion, then we must still galvanize people to go and participate in a thing like that.
But someone may say, look, we can ring fence the thing that we disagree on. You may say you want to go to elections. I don't want to go. But there could be a decorum with which we engage at a leadership level. Me being party A who wants to go to the elections and you who don't want. Do you think the public relations of it could have been handled differently?
Yes, no, I agree. I mean, looking as an outsider, and by outsider I mean because I had no official position. I already took the view that it could have been handled differently by the leaders who had positions in the mass democratic movement, even before the election season began. Yeah, so I agree with you. Yes, it could have been handled differently.
This is the last one on this current issues. There is this whole disappointed, despondent, angry young people who came out of nowhere with perhaps very little political education, who are like Israel in Hamas. They say, we want to kill Mngomezulu. He's in this house. But he's with 58 other people. They would rather bomb the entire house. As long as you are dead inside, it doesn't matter the 53 others. I hope you're following where I'm going.
Yeah.
So that these young people who were operating supposedly under underground forces and everything, frustrated, angry, and maybe with no platform to now. How, as a leader now in the MSF, are you going to suggest or are you going to do to handle these things? Because there are two options you're saying: dismiss them, make counterclaims, hear them out, and a variety of other options. How is the best way to deal with such a bad PR disaster like that?
Yeah, if you're in a position of leadership, mawusebuholini vele uba ufane ukuthi ngidawuthini uba inkoyoyo. Yeah, ngoba usuke ulapha eTulu engqongwaneni.
Yeah.
So wonke umuntu nakaphakamisa inhloko utawubona wena. Lo munye uphakamisa le nhloko frustrated, ukwadiswe ngithi into emkwadisile. Then avela hlohla inhlamba kuwe. Those are the stripes of leadership.
Yeah.
When you are in leadership, you must accept that part of what it means is that your name will be dragged in the mud. There'll be smear campaigns against you. People will scheme. There will be counter mobilization, and some of them actually don't even appreciate the consequences of their actions, let alone the seriousness of some of the things that are being said, and the damage that these things are causing, partly because some of them will not be there to have to pick up the pieces and fix these things. So I'm saying to you, part of being in leadership means you have to go through some of the things that we are now seeing and having to deal with. Leadership everywhere it happens. And you must accept it and understand it from that prism. The second thing is that when you go through any revolution, there will always be what is called a counter-revolution. So what we've seen the past few weeks, and even now, we are in that phase of the revolution, a counter-revolution. And a counter-revolution always stems from amongst those that you think you are working with. That's the nature of a counter-revolution. Yinzala ke counter-revolution engathi sonke. Naba bantwana baka-Israel siyatshelwa kulabo labafunda iBhayibheli baphuma eGibhithe. The first obstacle they face is the Red Sea. They turn against Moses, but vele bosisaphi. Besingakakuceli. Besiphila kahle. Unjani njani sebakhumbule boanyanisi baseGibhithe. And they prevailed. They crossed the Red Sea. When they were in the wilderness, there was another counter-revolution. So when they rose against him, when they had accepted to be taken out of Egypt, and then they faced the first challenge, then Moses is wrong, then Moses unglogu, then I'm sure kube bekumanje bebadazi uyaditshela who does he think he is, just because yena wakhulele palace la Pharaoh ucabanga ukuthi manje uyi-elite, ucabanga ukuthi manje sitawuva ngaye, all of those things. So that was a counter-revolution that Moses had to deal with. In the wilderness, he dealt with the same thing. Unfortunately, the counter-revolution in his case, so there's a reason why nabo labantwana baka-Israel, nasingasebenzisa leyo analogy, they ended up spending 40 days in the wilderness for a distance that otherwise would have taken, what do they say, 3 days? So this is where the mass democratic movement in Swaziland is now. So it's a moment that calls for leadership. It's a moment that calls for cool heads. It's a moment that calls for steady hands and a great degree of tolerance, so this is where we are right
This is
now.
how you will be judged as leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Which is why I'm saying this is where, as a leader, you earn your stripes.
And I'm happy you say this, because the one side is the issue of counter-revolution, which is true. I mean, any state that has faced what it faced, it will respond in any other way. But also the other way of it is the Chris Hani memorandum moment, where genuinely frustrated young people, sometimes acting out of frustration, will do things that are wrong. Are you feeling that you'll also be able to have the kind of leadership foresight that or Tambo, for example, had, to have accepted some of these concerns, discern what is now is worth engaging on, and give moral high ground, especially to the observers and the people labalapapans. And just lastly, on the same point, is that what about the others who have not gone out as these ones have done, but have a similar frustration, and they're looking at your response, whether or not they can come to you tomorrow and air their frustrations and mhlawumbe baphume bangcono bative bangcono kube more like their petitions of sorts, or nawe utawuthi counter revolution, dismiss everything, more or less doing like Themba did, bend
I see. Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. Okay, in characterizing the environment that the mass democratic movement is in, and describing it as a counter-revolution, I was giving you my analysis of what I understand the situation that we find ourselves to be. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that is the part that has to do with facts. Whether me sitting here, I can say I know what is being spoken of. So that's the second part. I'm just not so sure that one knows most of what is being spoken about, let alone the fact that it's even difficult to follow some of these things, because I think the way also it is being presented, it's not in a logical sequence, so to speak. But it's fine, fair enough. But one is not in a position then to interact and deal with these things factually, because there's many things that one would not know. And remember what I said to you earlier on, until 29 July 2023, one had no official position other than being Maqede and Mtande's lawyer.
And a regular commentator.
And a regular commentator that has got views that, yeah. So one would not have been in a position to even know some of the things that are being spoken of, by virtue of the fact that I suppose some things are supposed to be known by those who really are in that pay grade. But also, I think there should be a deliberate, how can I put it? I wish people, let me put it this way, I wish people would not exaggerate my importance.
Yeah.
You know, because I also do not want to end Mendlela lengakati sebendeli.
Yeah.
So if I think you mentioned something about a high table, I mean, what would qualify one to be in a high table if there is one? So so sometimes you must earn your medals, eh? So and my importance really should not be exaggerated, at least for the period from 28 July 2023 going backwards. Now, to deal with your question then maybe a little bit more pointedly, sengilombuto ke lothi utawenda utabalalela njenga OR Tambo noma utawenda kanjani. Yes, because phela angithi mangabe so ku leadership njengamanje vele you have a duty kulalela wonke umuntu. Now position your leadership, which is the MSF chairpersonship in this case. It is my responsibility to hear everybody. Of course, but you can only hear if you've been approached. I would like to believe I'm very accessible. Nowadays, it's very easy to get anyone. All online media platforms have got my contact details. And so anyone can come and sit, we have coffee, and try and understand what issues are there. Where do I come in? What can we do to assist? That sort of thing. But bazilokuhlela amadrots akuyabikwa. So ngiyacabanga ukuthi nase ku hlelwe iphasi ngeke kuhlale kungaphumisi isombululo.
Yeah.
So yeah, but lokho utawenda if ukuthi phela uceliwe then uyabona ngeke uhambe uyofuna abantu lo ngabadi ukuthi ngicela ukukhuluma nani awareness ufuna abantu.
Yeah. Just last one. Mawik is suggesting ukuthi your clients maybe salekuvela uma ngabe nje bahlete ejele basive sifukwana kanje no social media, their moral goes down. Perhaps it will be easy to creep to the ear and say, hey, macha samzoxolisa ngonyameni. Would you advise your clients?
He's
He's suggesting that perhaps one option is ukuthi kusukela abadzala kangwane, even from the family yabo bona bo baqede kuyoxoliswa enkosini. There is precedent to it, baxolelwe baphume and all of that. What do we comment to that?
Well, something like that is precisely the sort of society that I do not want. A society where, on the basis of the whims of one man, you can either be in jail or you can either be free. You can either live or die. Your family can either be destroyed or not. Your wife can either have the comfort of a spouse or not. One man can just decide that. It's the sort of society that we are struggling against. A society where I must please an individual for me to be free. So I'm already on record that there is no need for Baqede or Mthandeni to apologize for anything. He said it, I've said it. Nothing that they need to apologize for, as far as I'm concerned. They were not responsible. I repeat, they were not responsible for all the mayhem that ensued after the penning of the delivery of petitions. So there's absolutely nothing they must apologize for. They are not terrorists. They were not seditious in their conduct or in their speech. They didn't kill anybody, including the two murder cases that they are facing. The person who killed these people came to court and said I was driving the car. They attacked me. There were people who were protesting there, and I lost control and I ran over two of them, and over six of them, and out of the six, two died. So what are we talking about? So what are you apologizing for? What are you apologizing for? So I don't know. I haven't heard that this is what Mawiki said, but just judging by what you are telling me, I can confidently say if that's what he said, he's really speaking nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
Then I would like to talk a little bit about the family dynamics. We are outsiders to this family. At least we have been friends. You may know it better. There's Peggy, who's South Africa and really avoids this limelight. There's the brother who is the speaker, more or less the champion and face of Tingundla. There's Baqede, who is how is the family dealing with those dynamics at that level? And also there's a brother who's supporting the Tingundla, who's in parliament now, has won. Just on that as well, combine it because of time with the issue of the business. I was driving around the other day and ngibona lama hardware stores ake and how crumbling they are. How are they coping business-wise as a family?
I do not hold the brief to talk on those family dynamics. It's not a subject I would venture into, for the simple reason that I have not taken instructions on it, and it's not a matter that really I have canvassed. Even if I had canvassed it, it's not a matter that I had received any green light to deal with it in the public space. But of course, whatever one has said in relation to the case, I would confine myself to that. I think Emaswati know where Baqede stands, him and his convictions. And again, what is also already in the public domain, people know where Peggy stands. He's supporting his brother, and he stands by his brother. And as far as I'm aware, that has not changed. As far as the other gentlemen that you are mentioning, I would have nothing to say, to be quite honest.
And on the business side, how are they doing business-wise as a family? Do you know?
No, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, for the simple reason that that's a part that of their lives that I'm not involved with. Yeah.
And then I know we've already talked a lot, but there's a lot I would have still wanted to ask. So I just want to ask two last things. you have not spoken much about, or let me put it like this. Maybe the first one is, what is the way forward now to the despondent person? Look, you would have thought, and this is where I'm coming from. You said you want to join the elections after people babule, after the arrogance of the government and everything. You would have thought one of two options: either
Yeah.
people boycott the elections en masse,
Yeah.
or if they do join, they join and they vote the people who want change. And both failed. Those who said they must boycott, they just became a small fringe group on Facebook. Those who contested the elections, they were defeated, and by their own conduct, the elections were credible. They've not claimed that something did go wrong. So even from a political and PR point of view, they've endorsed the system. More and more kind of throwing despondency on the solution. Now the issue of the fight and everything. What do you think is a message to the new year to people? Should they just abandon the whole ship? What's the new thing? I mean, we've just come back from the Tingunze Tlalelene. Guna Mngomezulu here, guna Mr. Makanya here, guna another group there, you know. What's the message for 2024 from you as far as the MDM is concerned? And it's good that you are speaking as a leader of the uniting voice of all of them.
Yes. Yeah. So the MSF was, even before my time, positioned as the center of gravity for the mass democratic movement as a whole. And I think that was the right thing to do. And I intend to pursue that same line of thought. Why is it important that the MSF exists, especially at a time like this? Remember, in the MSF, there's political parties. There's also civil society. So there's people who are in the coalface, who get to deal and work with communities, who experience some of the difficulties that people experience. Swatini, and so some of the people that we have in the MSF, all 25 affiliates of the MSF, they are dealing with people issues. So it is the center of gravity, and it should position itself as such, and be able also to accommodate a multiplicity of ideas and positions. That is why I've always taken the view that I honestly do not understand why anybody who aspires that there should be a democratic Swaziland should not be in the MSF or should not participate and work with the MSF. I think that's the starting point. Now, the second thing that perhaps in responding to your question is that we need to take stock, all of us, reflect on the lessons that we have learned since 2021, knowing and appreciating, of course, the issues that we are dealing with and the problems that we are trying to solve are old. And there are those that have held the fort for many years. We have had to take in the rubber bullets and the tear gas, and long before us. In 1993, we were mobilized by Mbandlana. I was at St. Paul's at the time, as Hambas Toya, and Babane, and so on. I've participated in organizing student strikes myself when I was a head boy. When I wrote Form 5, Ngankatwe Mapoisa and Masocha, not just me, but Tikola Betikatwe Masocha, I had organized protests, and so I know the fact that the issues of concern in Swaziland are very, very old.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we need to do, Kulmela perspective here, MSF, we need to sit down, take stock of where we are and how we got to be where we are, and what is it that we need to be doing to continue together in lockstep towards the ultimate outcome. So I think that's what we need to do. And of course, all other voices that share our views, I think in my view, they would be most welcome in making a contribution, even as we chart the way forward.
Even those who left them, would, for example, President of Swalimo listening to you say he can expect your call and you talk as leaders and how they either get back to the MSF or you find a way of working together. Would Bans Dlamini, as a leader of another party that left the MSF, would someone in Sibahle Sinje, for example, which claims it wants change, will the other groups as well, that maybe even within the political parties that have different views, can they look at you listening to this message and expect you to reach out to them?
Yeah, well, I'm already on record. I can only refer to what I've already said in my maiden media interview since becoming MSF chairperson. I've made this point before. I said there is no reason why anybody who aspires or is working towards a democratic Swaziland should not be in the MSF. And I said, even those who would have been in the MSF before and have some, for whatever reason, felt they shouldn't be there, the door is open. So I'm already on record. So, which is why I can only repeat really what I've said. But then I also wanted to say, it is possible that people want the same thing, but differ on how it can be achieved, or sometimes differ even on the nuances of what the thing is. I think the tone that the public conversation or discourse is taking is one that between reformists and revolutionaries. Those who want to revolutionize the entire system, whole scale. And I'm one of those. I'm saying we review the whole thing. We bring about a new constitution, new everything. We discuss about the way we position the king, or the monarchy. As we do it, let me use the word monarchy because I'm not referring to an individual. I'm referring to the institution of monarchy, if it's still there. So we discuss that. I am not a reformist in the sense that you are looking at taking this thing piecemeal. Let's go to parliament and go and fight this and this and this, and then take it for the next 5 years and hope in the next 5 years we'll try and do something. And then the next 5 years we'll try and do something again. Because we could be sitting here and we are 90-year-olds. We are still busy trying to reform the Swaziland constitution section by section, clause by clause, chapter by chapter. I'm not interested in that. And so the conversation, the way I see it, is one where there are those that are saying, let us reform bit by bit, which is why then they will be comfortable in going into parliament, for instance, taking the oath to serve the king and his children, and no mention of the nation in that sort of oath. So I've got a problem with those type of things. And so, but it might well be that both the reformists and the revolutionaries, they actually, all of them want a Swaziland that is ruled through the multi-party system. But it's just how do we get there and when do we get there? There are those that have got appetite in terms of waiting this out for another 30 years. There are those of us that says, no. If you can do it in 30 years, you can do it in 2024.
Yeah.
Which is why we are insisting on the dialogue exercise which the country committed to, because it is in that dialogue. In the dialogue, something.
Yeah.
So you will, otherwise it wouldn't be a dialogue. So maybe coming back to answer you a bit more pointedly. What I think we need to be doing, having done the other things that I've just alluded to, I think we need to take seriously going forward the issue of civic education. And I think even Tinkhundla, they are equally appreciating now, which now they need to civically educate people. Well, they are referring to our children because they are saying Tinkhundla system of governance must be in the syllabus. But I think in our case, as the mass democratic movement, I think we need to be using a multiplicity of avenues to inform people, to win hearts and minds, to demonstrate that every suffering,
Can be linked.
it is linked to the system of governance. The mere fact that bantwana labacedzela steer esikolweni from 5 abakwati ukungena university with their acceptance letters, it's the problem lo ibangwe Tinkhundla system. The mere fact that emabhandishi uyabolekwa nesibhedlela noma mhlambe kuyashare ukuthi ungasebenzisi kakhulu ungishiyele nami kudimisa tibhedlela. Our hospitals are in the state that they are in. It's the Tinkhundla system.
Yeah.
And it's corruption.
Yeah.
The mere fact that Eswatini there's mines where even the minister of minerals and mineral resources doesn't know how much gold has been taken out, doesn't know how much tax was due in respect of that gold. That's
true.
But ngumnotho weMaswati. The mere fact that kuneMaswati lakhishwako etinzaweni tawo and they have to be relocated simply because ngiyabekisa kusekhona labafuna kulima emahlathi bafuna expand and therefore kufuna uphume noma sekhona lofuna kwenda skiti sekunkomo sekufuna uphume.
Yeah.
All of that is traced to the Tinkhundla system because the Tinkhundla system have placed a person, Namagwak, to be above the law. And therefore, their patronage networks and their cronies, they benefit from that as well. And loko kwenda ukuthi kube ne corruption le pervasive and le institutionalized because corruption is institutionalized in Swaziland. Here are the concerns that the FESPIC, the Federation of Indigenous Maswati, that's a business in. They are also dealing with the same thing to say we are unable to compete.
In fact, they are only waking up late because they were not as active when these things. They should have joined your organization, for example, to fight the root cause of the problem.
They are one of our affiliates, but the point I wanted to bring home is the point that says lonke liswati lala likhona khona ngifuna understand ukuthi tonke tinkinga letikhona vele tinkinga letibangwe ngile system ye governance.
Yeah. Just briefly, are you going to appeal your banishment in the country or challenge it?
If there were courts in Swaziland, that's for sure. But yeah.
But right now you're not.
The matter has already been lodged and it's within the court system. I can put it like that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
The last one from me. Each time I talk to you, I'm tempted to venture into your brain on variety of things. But let's do the last one. Your views around Palestine, Ukraine, and I mean what the world is facing, and how does the MSF position itself, especially with the global changing dynamics?
Yeah, we are in a struggle in Swaziland against a hegemonic power, against a king that says he has a right to rule over us to infinity. So naturally, you will identify with those that are in a struggle and those that are dealing with a hegemonic force, like the Zionist racist government in Israel. By the way, the Israeli state has been labeled an apartheid state.
By the UN even.
Yeah. So that's just how serious it is. So it's like asking me, it's like if we were to rewind, you are asking me this question in 1984, you are asking me my views on the apartheid government of South Africa. So it's the same thing in my view. So it's not me that's saying then apartheid state. It's credible institutions of the world that say so. So, but saying that It is not to say that there should be terrorism, that there should be the slaughter of innocents. That is by no means what I'm saying. But what you must understand, Hamas and the Zionist government in Israel, is that they both want the same thing for each other. The Israeli government, as it is currently configured, is the most extreme right-wing government that Israel has ever had since its founding in 1948. They exist purely to ensure that the Palestinians do not get a state. Now, according to Benjamin Netanyahu, Hamas exists for the same purpose, to liquidate the Israeli state. So you can see that you've got people that want the same, they wish each other death. So it's unfortunate. The one thing that would have resolved this is that if both of them were committed to the two-state solution, in other words, Israel, if they were deliberately, daily working towards ensuring that the Palestinians have a state of their own and they will coexist as neighbors peacefully and respecting each other. But certainly, it doesn't look like that's what's going to happen now. There's been settlement expansion, especially in the West Bank. The settlers in the West Bank are being armed, and more of the Palestinians are being pushed out of their lands. Their olive trees are being burnt to the ground. So you begin to wonder whether the two-state solution itself is something that is a possibility, or they should go for the South African option, which is that it's a one-state, equal rights, where we all vote, one man, one vote. Whoever prevails, the government will respect each other's religions, will respect each other's holy sites. It appears to me that that's perhaps something that would need to be looked into, if not now, in the near future. And I'm not alone in this view. John Kerry, the former Secretary of State in the United States, said the same thing in his closing remarks when it was the end of the Barack Obama term in 2016. Even Thabo Mbeki, as you say. Insofar as the Russia-Ukraine issue is concerned, look, we need to create a rules-based system in the international order, in the sense that all countries have an obligation to respect international law, one. Secondly, they have an obligation to respect commitments that they make to each other. As I understand it, there were commitments that were made at the end of the Cold War that NATO is not going to expand 1 inch eastward. And since 1996, coming this way, NATO has expanded more than once. They've increasingly encroached into countries where they had said they would never have members of NATO. And on the other hand, the Russian Federation says, look, you are threatening us. We would like to have some security guarantees. Don't bring powerful weapons and missile systems on our border. And it looks like there was arrogance on the side of the West. They were not prepared to entertain that. And the sad part is that there's been a loss of innocent human lives. And all of us must remember the war didn't start in last year, by the way, 24th of February 2022. The war actually started in 2014 when there was the Maidan revolution and a legally and constitutionally elected government was overthrown in a coup. And then there was a slaughter of those people in the east.
Russian speaking.
In the Donbass areas, and so the Russian speakers. And then there was a Minsk I and Minsk II agreements, which the former Chancellor of Germany has confirmed that they had no intention, the West had no intention at all to comply with. So when we look at these issues, we must appreciate all of these realities. Yeah. Of course, a ceasefire would be ideal. Everybody must go back to the table. but I think egos are at play. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. It's a sad state of affairs. We would appreciate a situation where all these parties go back to the negotiating table. A deal was struck, by the way, a few months after the war started, I think a month after the war started, in Turkey. And there was an agreement mediated by Turkish President Erdogan. And then Zelensky went back and he was told not to comply with the terms of that agreement. So hence I said, we need to be deliberate in ensuring that we live in a world order that respects agreements. In the same way that we are calling for Mswati now to respect the agreement that he made with President Ramaphosa, that there will be a dialogue in Swaziland, not the joke.
But the government is
he was doing, not the joke.
What do you think?
Well, it's not up to him.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not up to him whether there will be a dialogue or not. It's not entirely up to him. In actual fact, it's up to us. We must find our common voice around this issue and stop all of these petty things that are happening now because they weaken the image of that which is we are trying to achieve.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mngomezulu. We really appreciate you're very knowledgeable around these issues. Actually, in particular dates. I've been noticing how you are spot on dates.